Welcome into Boxing Scene today. Well, the talks are happening in what may be one of the biggest fights of 2026. Another question is, could developments in January of 2026 make these fights that much easier and better and, a little smoother to make? Well, to help me break this all down, Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie, he's got his shades to do his woodwork on. That's what I'm talking about. We love having you here. Woodshop, ready to go. Woodshop sunglasses. Look, so the fight, of course, I am referencing that had a 6-hour talk was between the parties invested in, that's right, Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis. Apparently they had a 6-hour talk. People who were in that meeting or close to it spoke to Boxing Scene. Some of the issues, of course, Oscar De La Hoya after the fight saying his man, Vergil Ortiz Jr., should get the lion's share of the purse. He's the A-side. He's the big name. Gentlemen, you've been in these kinds of discussions before on both sides of it. What do you think might be the holdup, might be the sticking point of this, where they said the talks were good, but there's more to have? Paulie, what do you think they might be? Could they be that who's the A-side kind of thing?
I mean, the sticking points are going to be things like the lion's share of the purse, but also where the fight happens. Where the fight happens, I think, is really important, and I think is going to really be a sticking point, and could be something that you do like a give and take. Okay, well, I'll let you decide the fight happens here, but then I want this much extra money instead. That's how these kind of negotiations tend to go. Where you give a little piece here to take this piece here, or you give this piece back to then be able to take more on this side, and so on and so forth. So I think that's probably, if you want to make the fight, you're going to have to be flexible on both sides, and what I mean is both sides. So right. Sometimes you do get. And sometimes the other side has to give, and then maybe in another part of the conversation, they get, and then you got to give. Both sides have to be understanding of that. And so if there's enough giving and taking back and forth, and there's a true desire to make the fight will get made. But yeah, you gotta you're laughing because sometimes it doesn't get made. Right. But I think there has to be a true desire for both sides to make the fight.
Is this part of the difficulty, Chris? Let me throw it to you about, oh man, two guys fighting in their prime. Two guys fighting in their prime. I want the money. I want the glory. I want this. I want that. Rather than one guy's clearly the A-side. He can dictate a little bit more. Is this the difficulty? Sometimes you get a fight like this made when two guys are in their prime. Because they both want it, but they both want to be number one.
Yes, but I have a hard time thinking that it's the fighters. They have two powerful promoters with a lot to lose. And the promoters themselves have egos, and whenever you have a negotiation, usually there's one side and the guys that are deal makers, and there's deal disruptors on the other side, guys that will torpedo a deal, and it could be because of ego, it could be because there's sticking points they just can't get over. There's things that they won't give up for their client, and that ends the deal. When I first heard about this 6-hour negotiation, I was like, it's not a good sign, but I think it's in the public eye enough that if this were to get torpedoed, somebody's getting thrown under the bus. It's going to be a really, really bad look, and people want this fight so badly. So I do think this fight's going to happen. And what happens in these kind of negotiations that go back and forth, I was in one of these, a 6-ish hour negotiation for my Pacquiao fight. God, it's brutal. And I was managing myself at the time, so I would do it myself. Horrible.
Yeah, I was going to say, are the fighters in these mostly, or is it like, hey,
No.
Yeah.
But the promoter does have a duty to send everything your way as far as everything that's been offered. They can't knock down offers without your consent, at least.
Right.
Like they may get an offer and then say I advise you not to take it. I don't think we should take it.
There's going to be.
But you got to know what you turn down and what not turned down.
But there's going to be sticking points on the side from the fighter side. When I say fighter side, it could be the coach as well. It's not just the fighter. So it'll be fighter and the coach, and there'll be certain things that they want. Like for example, it could be the size of the ring. Could be where the fight happens. Kind of things like that. Like guys, I need the ring to be this big. Don't come back to me until that's done. Yeah. Kind of thing. In which case, like you said,
may have
the
to
promoter
sometimes.
Right, and the promoter can't, come back to you and be like, well, we gave them the ring, but no, that was a sticking point for you. I really need that. So you're going to have a lot of that. And the reason that these take so long is because there is that. There's a lot of people to talk to. There's a lot of heads in the game, a lot of people that matter, that need to be spoken to, so all the details can be there. Because like you said, Jimmy, I doubt it's a room where it's a big, long table, and you've got Vergil and Robert, and you got Oscar De La Hoya, and you got
this isn't Turkey Alashi,
and you got Rick
and Crawford.
That's not the way these things go. It's usually the lawyer, the manager, or the promoter speaking, and then there's a lot of go between. But these things are tough, man. Like I said, I've been in them. I'm sure, Paul, you've been in them, or at least I've been involved with them. It's there's a lot to go back and forth with these guys. Like you said, Jimmy, great point, because of their age and how much there is to lose. But it's also these promoters, they don't want to give up their guys, especially De La Hoya. This is his prize pig right now. You know, this is the guy. Vergil is a budding superstar.
Call him a pig.
I knew you were going to say something. It's a saying.
It is a saying. It is true.
Prize thoroughbred.
Prize thoroughbred.
The guy's a pig. Prize thoroughbred.
All right. You got me.
When you look at this situation, however, one of the things that I find actually kind of fascinating is this idea that these guys are sitting down trying to make a deal on the heels of Lamont Roach Jr. versus Isaac Pitbull Cruz. We saw perhaps it was a close fight, but it's highlighted this. He's going to get screwed. He'll be lucky to get a draw. A Mexican-American, a Mexican fighter in Texas, in Southern California. It's this idea of you're fighting against all that as well.
You've got to.
But in Philly, it's the exact opposite for Ennis. Yeah.
Yeah, but is it? I mean, listen, it's always something, but is it as bad as Texas? I mean, Texas stands out as alone on its own. Texas is its own.
Historically.
Right, yeah.
Texas is its own level.
Chavez,
There's always
Whitaker,
politics.
I'll cry right now on cue.
Whitaker, Chavez, yeah. And matter of fact, speaking of these kind of negotiations, I was with my Juan Diaz rematch. I was offered more money to go back to Texas. I was like, no, I don't want more money. I want to win the fight. Yeah. So I'm going to not take that much more money, and I'll do it in a neutral venue because they wouldn't let me go to New York because, you know, when a shoemaker runs your career, you don't have that kind of power.
Right.
But you know, neutral was better than going back to Texas regardless of the money, because at that point, you know, I'm 29 years old and I'm still fighting for a career. You know, it's not just I'm not trying to cash out here. You know, if you're trying to cash out, it's like, okay, you'll prioritize money over everything. Money's always important, but there's certain stipulations you got to, again, like I said before, and you were talking about, you giving and taking, certain sticking points, certain things you'll be flexible on in the negotiation, where you may part with more money to have your way in something else, or you know, maybe you don't want to part with money on certain stipulations. Maybe certain things they'll say, okay, we'll give you this, but you'll part with money. And you're like, no, I don't want to part with that money for that. You can have that. Then even though if I wanted it, you can have it. And certain things are going to be sticking points. No, I will part with money to not have that. You know, so these things, yeah, that's why it takes 6 hours, bro. You know what I mean? But if both sides know they want to make the fight, they'll come to it.
What I'm curious about, and Chris, let me throw this to you, is Philly the advantage for Ennis that Texas or Southern California would be for Vergil Ortiz? Because when we called a fight in Philly and we had Mexican fighters, what happened? That crowd was crazy for him. Mexican fans tend to travel pretty well. There tend to be Mexican pockets in pretty much any major city. Does it help Ennis being in Philly the way Texas or Southern California would help Vergil Ortiz Jr.? That's my question to you, Chris.
Simple answer, no, but it's not just because of location, it's because of style. Vergil is a much more aggressive fighter. Not that Ennis won't stay in the pocket and trade, but Vergil is going to close the gap and get right to that. The more space and style involved in the fight, I think it aids Ennis. So it would help him, based on his style and location, would be more beneficial than if it wasn't in Philly. But again, it's going to come down to the money. The guarantee on ticket sales, I think, will be so much bigger in Texas or
sellout.
In Vegas.
It's a sellout
than it will be in Philly. Philly, don't get me wrong, Ennis does really well in Philly, but I think the Mexican fan base coming out.
Ultimately, in North America, the Mexican fan base.
Yeah, they move the needle.
They can always say you'll have a sellout in Texas.
I can remember. You're going to remember this too. I can remember De La Hoya in Trinidad. I mean, I was at some Trinidad fights on the East Coast. He sold like an animal.
Right, crazy.
But it didn't matter.
No.
When it came down to De La Hoya, you had to go to Vegas. Even Trinidad had to go to Vegas. So the Mexican fan is king in North America in this hemisphere.
It's the one thing, you get a guaranteed sellout, and the 6 hour discussion we are discussing didn't lead to a deal yet. It looks like it looked hopeful that it might happen in the future. But some motivation here. Dana White saying January 23rd on Paramount Plus is when TKO Boxing and the UFC are starting their 2026 run. My question, Chris, let me start with you, is could this get motivation to get some of these deals made? That boxing itself, if you're not in the TKO Turki Al-Sheikh camp, might have a fire under it to get more deals done.
Man, if only altruism was a thing. We got to do this.
So true.
We have to do this for boxing.
Right.
Nah, that's not the case. That's never the case.
I've never been at a table where they would say, we got to make this fight for the
What's
fans.
good for the people?
They'll say it in front of the media, but that's never been a sticking point. We got to make this fight for the fans.
No.
I assure you, behind the closed doors, that's never been said, ever. Said no one ever.
And even if one of the promoters did bring that up and being like, hey, listen, they're breathing down our necks. We got to get this fight done. That's a bullshit negotiation ploy too. That's not a real. Right, there's no altruism. They're looking out for themselves, looking out for their clients. So it's a nice thought from 1,000 miles away looking in. It's like, oh yeah, that's gonna push this thing along. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't think these guys are really going to be that concerned about that. It's right in front. I hate to say it, but a lot of times with boxing negotiations, it's smash and grab. Get what you can while you can get it.
Yeah. So Paulie,
short-term goals. Always.
Right. So what do you think the effect might be come January when TKO starts doing their thing on the rest of boxing, or would say outside the TKO Trigonometry camp?
I don't think anybody's worried about TKO. I'll tell you why.
Please.
Of many reasons, of course, but this one you announced your TKO launch. If you got a big fight scheduled January 23rd, you would have said it already, bro. You know what I mean? So, okay, you launched. All right. My cousin's opening a shoe store down the street next month. I know, cuz that $2 will get you on the bus. Right. What fight do you have? So, because we're in December 10th here. January 23rd is a month and change away. So, if you had anything worthwhile, you would have actually said it and announced it, like everybody else announces it.
We know about Matias.
Yeah,
that's roughly the same time.
We know about Shakur and Teal.
Exactly.
That's way after.
So again, that's this. Again, Dana comes from a very stupid fan base, and they're so dumb that they fall for everything he says. Now you're in a different world here. The boxing fan is a little bit more astute. That's not going to work. You got to give us the matchup for us for the promoters to feel threatened even. You said there's pressure on the promoters.
Right.
No, there's no pressure on the promoters because they're trying to make real fights, and whether they make them or not is a different argument as we just had. But you're going to make. I'm not saying Dana's not going to make real fights, but they're not big names. They're not going to be like the name. Because if he had that, he would have announced it January 23rd. He would have said, January 23rd, I got so-and-so fighting so-and-so. No, you're just having the launch of your company. All right, but that and $3 will get you on the train in New York. Go to New York and get a Metro card. Or they call it Omni cards now?
It's 3 hours now. It's $3
$3 now. Yeah, starting the new year, it's $3.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
When I was a kid, it was 50 cents. Imagine when I moved to this country. But yeah, that and $3 will get you on the MTA subway.
I'm from California, no public transportation at all. But when you look at this situation, you talk about the fan base, Paulie, but Chris, let me turn around a little bit. It's not about the fan base, the relative intelligence of the fan base. To me, it's they're used to a brand-centric model. The UFC brand by itself had power. How am I good? I'm the UFC champion. Why am I a good fighter? I'm in the UFC. That brand-based TKO model, will it have trouble? To Paulie's point, Chris, because boxing's not brand-centric. I've never looked at a fighter and gone, oh, is he Top Rank? Yeah, Top Rank makes good investments.
You go first, but
maybe
I got
a
thought on
Please.
this.
I don't think. No, I'm thinking more that this is not the beginning of the UFC. This is just the beginning. It's gonna build. I think this is a long-term play. I don't think it has to come out of the gate with like this massive fight, because obviously that's not. It's only 6 weeks away already, so it's not being marketed that way. And it might be interesting for Dana being involved because he's so used to having stacked UFC cards where you could be excited about every fight on the bill. We got this guy versus that girl versus, and I don't think he's not going to have that for a little bit. So it's a different approach, same model, different approach.
But you're competing in a business that already has its branding. Right. I'll tell you where the branding is in boxing. The sanctioning bodies. I'll tell you that the reason that WBC is more known than the other sanctioning bodies, even though all four of them, if you win their world titles, it changes your contract the same way. It's not like my WBC, my contract at a WBC title. If I win that, it gets me more money than the IBF, WBA. You have to win one of those, and your minimums went up. Okay, but WBC brands itself better than the other companies. And again, I've had my issues with the sanctioning bodies. I praise them when I need to, and I defend them when I need to. In this regard, I don't have a problem. WBC does more branding than the other sanctioning bodies. They're better at it. But in that regard, that's where boxing's branding comes in. It's the sanctioning bodies. The WBC will brand itself better by doing more charity work, putting in a belt here and there. Don't get me wrong. The fighters are absolute morons when they go there and brand for the sanctioning body. They say, the green belt. I know, buddy, you got to be Mexican and you can win the green belt. Chavez Jr. won a green belt. So it's not any different than the other ones. There's advantages and disadvantages. You got to win one of those 4 major titles. WBC is not better than the other 3, but at the same time, they brand themselves better. They put the work.
Mauricio's
the work
the president, and he speaks.
Yes.
We don't hear a lot of.
He's in the news a lot.
Yes,
he's in the news a lot.
To your point, why these are similar is Dana being the face of UFC. There's a face to it. People want that personal touch.
But now you're going head to head in a different way because the promoters are not the brands in boxing. They're just companies. The sanctioning bodies are the brands. And for better or for worse, there's times I defend it, and there's times where I don't agree. In that regard, If it has to, you have to eliminate them. I don't agree with eliminating them.
That's where the
cannot eliminate them.
for TKO coming in, because it's not like they're coming in and they have one enemy. They don't. There's enemies all over. You're going into a hostile territory. You're going into the Badlands. You've got enemies everywhere.
Because the brands, the sanctioning bodies, make money for everybody. Everybody complains about the sanctioning body, but without the sanctioning bodies, nobody makes money, guys. So you still need the sanctioning bodies. Complain about them all you want. They're like the relative that you love and hate sometimes. You know what I mean? But you need them. You need them. Nobody makes money without the sanctioning bodies. If you eliminate the sanctioning bodies, I'm telling you, there's less money moving around.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting come January. Also, Vergil Ortiz Jr. boots Ennis as their talks continue past the 6 hours. You'll find out about it right here on Boxing Scene today. Find out why millions are watching and where the news goes.